Well, welcome in once again to another Johnny Torch Reviews. Today we're going to look at the second Superman trailer, and I decided to do this one live because I don't do too many live shows anymore. It's very difficult to get them in the afternoon, very busy as I am. But if you're catching this live, be sure to jump in the chat here. Let me know what you think about the trailer because I'm really interested in seeing. There's a variety of reactions I've seen. And I don't know, I can kind of see it from all points of view, to be honest with you. Just to be sort of summing up my thoughts, it's not really the trailer I wanted, but again, it's not bad. I kind of feel like a lot of people are having knee jerk reactions one way or the other. They're saying, oh, this is the greatest thing I've ever seen. And there's other people saying that it's trash and, they have no use for it. So I kind of am coming down on the fence on this one. I kind of feel like, as I said on Twitter, the only thing I said on Twitter, I says, let me do a video for a change first, because usually I give my opinions on Twitter, and then nobody really wants to see the video because they already know what I'm going to say. But I did say on Twitter that you have to find the right balance, and what I mean by that is I want it to be old school, and this is like the most old school version of Superman we've had, at least allegedly. It looks old school. I mean, we've got Ma and Pa Kent, you know, involved in his life, apparently, at least according to the trailer. I mean, it could be flashbacks. I don't think so. But, he's got a relationship with his parents. You've got crypto. It feels very Silver Age meets, maybe the 90s stuff where Ma and Pa was still alive. This is a good step. This is a step in the right direction. This is not the ultra serious, dour Superman Returns, um, Man of Steel. Even I think you could even throw in Superman and Lois being very dour and dark, and I've had it with that, and I think a lot of us, particularly old school, who grew up on the Christopher Reeve films, we want to return to that as much as possible. I don't think this trailer promises a complete return to that. This seems to be filled with a lot of modern sensibilities, and we'll get to that in a second. But you also have to have some kind of leeway given, because it's never going to be exactly the way it was back in the good old days, so to speak. I mean, this is kind of what I felt with the prequels, the Star Wars prequels. You can't go into the Star Wars prequels going, well, I expect to feel exactly like I did when I seen A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi, when it was Luke and Han and Leia. And we've got like a different set here of circumstances. We've got a lot of time passing. We've got, in the case of Star Wars, of course, there was a lot of new characters that, were going to be introduced. There was only a handful that were going to be from the original trilogy. But, you have to not be slavish to what your expectations are. And I feel like in a lot of ways, a lot of people are disappointed only because they are slavishly trying to recreate the Christopher Reeve films. I don't think that's necessary. I think you can give Gunn enough leeway where he can do something a little different. Again, as I said, I even said this on Twitter, where I think a lot of the in the last 20 years, let's say, Superman has been more dour and dark, and we've got deadbeat dad Superman in Superman Returns, where Lois is already with another guy. We've got Man of Steel, where he literally watches his father die, and then he kills his countrymen in sort of a no-win scenario. And then we have Superman and Lois, where Soup has a bum ticker and Lois is fighting cancer. We really don't have that, Silver Age excitement and high flying adventure Superman. And I was kind of hoping that this trailer was going to really cement that that's where we're going with this film. But it does feel to me like it's going for more of a modern take in some ways. I'm gonna try to get some images up here. We're not gonna play the trailer because, again, I don't really know. I don't want to get the channel struck or something. So we're just gonna take some images from, and we'll go through some of the highlights of the trailer. This first segment here of the trailer is what I think they were using as a uh, sort of a rehearsal scene when they were trying to cast the actors. And I can see why. It looks like it's a really good scene. It looks like it's a well put together scene where Lois is going to interview Clark slash Superman. And another thing that I'm not crazy about was this version where Lois already knows that he's Superman, Clark. I don't know why they always jump straight to that in the modern telling. The most exciting thing was always the golden age, going back to the golden age, where Lois didn't know he was Superman, and Clark is trying to court Lois, but Lois really doesn't think much of Clark, and she's interested in Superman, and Superman kind of has to be aloof. He's a servant of mankind, and he's not really going to get tied down and get married and this and that. But we're jumping right into that again. Man of Steel did the same thing, and of course, Superman Returns was already it already had the lore of the Reeve films. So I'm kind of disappointed with that, but I love this interaction here because you could see where he just becomes Superman. He's Clark for a second, and then he becomes Superman. I think that shows a lot of what David is going to bring to this role as Superman. He's got that ability that Reeve had, where he can sort of turn it on, and he just like sits up and goes, Miss Lane. All of a sudden he's Superman. And he doesn't have to have the suit on. He doesn't have to show some transformation. He's a good actor, and I think he's going to do very well with this role. The scene itself, though, ends up giving me difficulty because we're going into the same kind of direction here. I think that we went into with Civil War, where it's going to be a lot about how the the nations, the country is not going to simply just let Superman do his thing. I think even in the Christopher Reeve film, they sort of paid some tribute to that with Lois saying, you're going to fight every elected official in the country. But Lois is sort of pushing his buttons here and trying to point out that people don't exactly see him as having the right to do what he's doing and going to other countries and stopping wars. Is that what the American government wants? Maybe they want this war. Maybe it's beneficial to the United States. And then we have that moment where Clark sort of is like, well, you know, I'm not beholden to the United States of America, which I think is another red flag that a lot of old school Superman fans are not going to want to hear. They're not going to want to see him, saying, I'm doing this for me. You know what I mean? He's, I'm doing it because it's the right thing. A lot of people are going to get turned off to this fact that, he's not going to be truth, justice, in the American way. Now, Warner Brothers slash DC was never going to really let him be the American flag bearer, so to speak. And I feel like in a way I've got to cut them a little slack, but I still think that this is not exactly where you want to start your trailer. A lot of people criticized that when we got the first trailer and we had Superman in pain and injured and Crypto has to come save him. And I agreed that that really isn't like where you want to start your trailer. That's not really what you want to put your first foot forward as, seeing Superman in pain and bleeding. And it's the same thing here, where we don't really want to start the trailer by seeing Superman rattled, where he's upset and angry and people are not supporting him, so to speak. They're not responding well to what he's doing, and people are throwing garbage at him and so on and so forth. I mean, I think you have to build up to that. And I said that with the last trailer, and I don't feel like they learned anything from that last trailer having that kind of uh impact. You know what I mean? It's like, why don't we start with Superman being a hero to everybody first? Now, again, this is a trailer. I'm not saying that that's how the film is going to turn out. Maybe people are going to appreciate Superman before all this garbage starts happening to him. But again, this feels more like we're still doing the modern thing where we're beating Superman down, and as I've always said, Superman is a wish fulfillment character. You have to start off with him being a high flying, high adventure, always has the praise and adulation. He's not Batman. He's not dark and moody and brooding, and the people are afraid of him and they don't trust him. And Superman is the opposite of that character. That's why it works so well when you're doing World's Finest or some kind of team up in Justice League or whatever, is because their personalities go well in opposite to each other. You know what I mean? You can have a lot more fun having conversations between two characters who are completely opposite but share the same goals. And so I don't think you start, like I said, the film or the beginning of your new franchise with him already in the cauldron of adversity. And again, they could start the movie like I'm saying, where he's already the hero and people admire him and respect him, and we're just getting in the trailer the scenes where he's kind of being rejected by society and people are not happy with him and so on. We'll have to see, but I don't think that's the best marketing for the movie is, well, Superman's back and everybody hates him and he's getting his butt kicked. I don't really think that's really great. This is another scene I had trouble with right here. I had trouble with this scene. Now, maybe it's not for the reasons you think. Now, I don't have a problem with someone helping Superman up, because arguably you can say that looks like it makes Superman weak. I mean, he can't get to his feet on his own. I think this is okay that it shows a concerned citizen trying to help Superman. But my question is, why is there only one guy trying to help him? Like, if you think this scene kind of harkens back to Spider Man 2, and the idea was, or even Spider Man 1, actually, the whole city of New York is behind Spider Man. And when he's like unconscious and they're all like reverently passing him over to the ground, I would imagine more people would be trying to help Superman, not just this one guy that was like, well, I'm not afraid to help Superman. Is he that much of a pariah, Superman, in this film, where it's going to be like maybe one guy out of 50 that's going to say, well, I want to help Superman. He looks like he's getting his butt kicked and I'm going to help him out. It doesn't really ring true to me. It just looks like this guy's grandstanding. Like, Superman doesn't need help, but I'm going to get probably on somebody's phone, by doing this. And if it was a bunch of people, let's say five people, maybe it would probably feel more authentic. This just feels like one guy decided, hey, I'm going to get on the news tonight by helping Superman stand up. That's just the way it struck me. Maybe I'm, maybe I'm being a little jaded and a little, I don't know, but that's just the way it struck me. But the rest of the trailer, I think, was actually pretty good. So we'll get to some of the stuff I liked now. Uh, we see this villain adversary. I don't really know what this character is in the comics. I think this is the engineer. I think that's what this character's name is called, and apparently she's the one that's laying waste to all these Kryptonian robots that we've seen Superman mourn one of them in one of the previous trailers, or was it the? I think it was the previous trailer, and she has the ability to turn her hands into buzz saws. Again, I'm not familiar with this character. I don't know if it's a very old character or a newer character. Not familiar, but apparently this is the sort of the well, the takeover, I guess, is the term for Luthor in the Fortress of Solitude. He's taking over the fortress, and I don't really know if Superman is in this scene. I don't remember. I've seen the trailer twice before doing this video. I don't remember if Superman's here. I know Crypto is in here, and I think he tries to attack this engineer, and she like flips him away, like brushes him away, kind of. And I've seen people online, concerned for Crypto. Does this mean Crypto is going to get killed in the film? I mean, is there a danger for Crypto? I don't really think so. I think if anybody is going to survive, it's going to be Crypto, besides Superman himself. Because again, a lot of people are complaining about that they're pushing Crypto in this film as one of the big draws. Like, Crypto is in commercials and he's taking a center stage in the trailer. That's all marketing. You know what I mean? I think that's all. When you see the plushies coming out and the tie-ins for Happy Meals or whatever, they're all going to be with Crypto. I mean, it's basically Baby Groot, it's Baby Yoda, Grogu. I mean, he's just going to be the face of the marketing wing. I don't think you have to worry about him either getting killed or maybe taking over the film to an extent. uh there's another character here. I don't know what this character is. Some kind of I've seen talk in the on Twitter that this is a character from the Golden Age, the Hammer of Biorvia or something. I don't know. I don't know how true it is, but I think there was a Golden Age villain, I guess, that was doing this. He looks like he's part of some kind of a space force or something that spaceships are landing on the ground. I mean, they might not be spaceships, but there's some kind of military presence that Superman is fighting. Not just the huge kaiju. He's also fighting these warriors or something in Metropolis. So this is very interesting. I think the action is good. I think the special effects are good. I don't see any complaint about that. Some people, well, a lot of people complain about anything. Um, Again, randomly, let me just take a few scenes from the trailer. We got the scene of Clark getting ready. I really was hoping to see a shirt rip because I feel like that's something that I think they've done with every Superman from Chris Reeve on. That became like the most iconic thing you can do with Superman is the shirt rip. We don't get that here. We got this, and I was kind of like, oh, we're building up sort of to a shirt rip, but then it cuts away quick. And I don't know. Maybe he'll get a shirt rip in this film. Maybe he won't. I don't know if they're going to try to shy away from that because the way they do it nowadays, it's like heroes don't really wear their suits under their costumes anymore because it's not practical. I mean, Superman and say Spider-Man, they can kind of still get away with it because they're still wearing the tights, the classic type of, and that's the reason why superheroes wore tights. If people want to know, I mean, you know, nowadays, I mean, of course, characters like Iron Man and stuff can't, do that kind of thing. But most of them, Batman, Superman, even Daredevil, they would not have these armored, clunky suits. They would just have a spandex outfit underneath that they could easily just change into quickly. And it was done for practical purposes. Nowadays, it's more like, well, I might not get there in time to save somebody because by the time I get into my costume and go find my costume and find a place to change into my costume, there could be casualties of like several thousand. And I kind of wish we could go back to the superhero with the costume underneath the suit. That's kind of disappointing to me. All right. Let's see. There's Metamorpho. We get a close look at him again one more time. Metamorpho. He's kind of looks like experimenting with his powers. This is to me the most interesting aspect of the movie. I like to see how they're going to use him. If they're really, are they going to spin him off into something? Um, I don't really know. What was he in? Batman and the Outsiders. I know he was in, but yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they do with this character. But we don't really learn that much about him in this trailer. And we get this scene again of Superman in this weird glass prison. And I don't really know what this is supposed to be. We see people in the background here. Looks like like a ballerina or something. And then we've got Metamorpho, and we've got some shadowy figure here. And Superman's getting beat up by some space aged soldier guards or something here. I don't know what this is going to be. And Metamorpho looks like he's nonplussed at the whole situation. Superman is trying to, I think break out as we see him punching the glass. He's going to try to break out of this prison cell. But what this has to do with the movie again, I mean, I don't know. Are they cracking down on all, you know, meta humans or superpowered humans? I don't know, but apparently it's going to be something like that. I mentioned this before, but we'll talk about this again for a second. Uh, it looks like he's in Smallville. It looks like he's with the family here. This is the scene with the Crypto is with him, and we get to see Ma and Pa Kent. I hope they don't kill off Ma Kent. I mean, Pa Kent traditionally has died in the comics before Ma Kent. I mean, I suppose either of them could go, both of them could go. You never know, but I kind of feel like this iteration of Superman, he really should have them live a little bit longer than in the classic films, the classic sense. And you get the scene of, Ma Kent saying, I polished your boots or something like that. That's what I mean. It's kind of like it's kind of fun to see. I mean, we don't really get like a Superboy series where it's, they did a little something like that with the Superman and Lois, where he goes, my mom made this costume and stuff. But we really don't get a sense of that too much in these, like I said, in the classic series of films, that mom and pa Kent had any influence over him being Superman more than just his upbringing, his moral character, so to speak. So I mean, I think that's fun. I think it's a little something different to play with if you want to say, let's not continue just trotting over all ground. This is something a little different that they're bringing to the table that I think that's good. All right, let's talk briefly before we wrap up here about Luthor. We get to see Luthor a couple of times. We get to see him do the villain monologue that he always does, which is, you know, basically Superman's an alien. He's an it, not a man. And I don't want him being the focus of all attention. Honestly, I don't like this either. I don't like that. The only reason why Luthor hates Superman is because he's an alien. Because especially in the DCU large, there is a million aliens. So just to say that Luthor hates Superman because he's an alien and he's beloved and this and that, it just doesn't ring true to me, because we've got so many, we got Hawk Girl herself in this film, which I'm pretty sure, I don't know, they're going to use what origin they're going to use for her. But even if you don't like that, let's talk about the Green Lantern Corps. Guy Garner, there's all kinds of lanterns from all different kinds of planets, and Oa, the Guardians themselves are aliens. I mean, I like it when it's a more personal thing. The original origin where Luthor hates Superman because he made his hair fall out was even more, honestly, it was more palatable because of Luthor's vanity, you know? And I think you could still, like the Gene Hackman version, he was just evil because he was a villain. He was a schemer. He wanted to do things and he wanted Superman out of the way. And you can even do that and have that as a reason for him hating Superman. For me, that he is an alien, just to me, it doesn't, and well, it's not just that he's an alien. It's an alien that has powers that everybody looks up to. It still, to me, feels like weak sauce, and I think that's the one they're going with here for motivation on Luthor. Uh, Not crazy about it. Not crazy about it. Uh, let's see. I think I got a couple more. Let's see here. Well, we didn't get a lot of Clark Kent, but we see him goofing off here with, I think that's Jimmy Olsen, and I don't know what's happening there, but he's hitting him, and he's acting like he's being hurt. And again, I like this that we're going back to the goofy Clark Kent. I just don't like that Lois knows that's him. I mean, I wish we could just go back to the, you know, Clark goes to Lois, "Oh, I wish you'd stop talking about Superman. That's so annoying." And he like all but winks to the camera. That's what I always say. That's the kind of Clark Kent that I like. That he's, not only is he kind of goofy, klutzy type person, but he's like making his own joke that only he gets. And Superman, I think that's the reason why a lot of people don't, the old school fans don't really caught into this type of, well, Superman is not always in charge. He's not always in control. He's, you know, got doubts. He's got, problems from people who don't appreciate him. I mean, that's kind of the modern take on Superman, but the Superman that we kind of all grew up with Christopher Reeve was that Superman is like the dad of the superheroes. He comes on the scene and everybody respects him. You know, he says what's going on here, everybody shuts up, and the bad guys, if they act out a little bit, he puts them in their place without breaking a sweat. It's years and years of people saying that that's boring, or that he's overpowered, or that it doesn't speak to people anymore. That's why we're getting this modern take that I'm just not as impressed with. And I don't know, I just, I hope that as a whole the movie is gonna like grab me more than what a lot of the trailer is showing. All right, and finally, well, wait a minute before we wrap up, this is one of our big glory shots of the three, I guess they're Justice League members, or I don't know why they're in this film unless there's some, are they being like commissioned by the government? to do something here. I don't know, but Mr. Terrific is on his flying chair. There's Hawk Girl and of course Guy Gardner with the goofy haircut. I think they look great. I don't think they're going to be in the film probably that much, but I think as supporting characters, they're going to be fine. A lot of people are like, "There's too many characters in this movie." Let's see how the movie goes first. Let's see how they use them before we worry about that. This is Cat Grant, I guess. A lot of people I've seen complaining about this scene, but I mean, Cat Grant is supposed to be kind of goofy and not to be taken seriously. I mean, I don't really think I would concern myself with this one shot. And finally, I think this was probably my favorite scene or the favorite part of this, where um, Superman goes, "Hey, buddy, eyes up here," and it kind of reminded me of, you know, General, would you care to step outside? This is kind of the it's like the height of bravado that you see from Superman. He isn't like that much of a bravado superhero. He doesn't like make the dramatic overtures and stuff like a Batman or, you know, maybe even Wonder Woman's a little more dramatic. But with Superman, when you get these dramatic beats like this, they're really great. And I think this was a great scene, a great beat where he, says this and he goes flying back up. Of course, at the end of the trailer, he goes crashing back down. Now, I don't know if that is, you know what I mean? Is that a harbinger of how this film is going to go? He's going to go straight up and then go straight back down. I don't want to think that's the case. I don't want to think that's a possibility, quite honestly. I want to see this Superman soar. Again, as a trailer, I'm 50-50. I feel like they're trying to involve a little too much of real world politics with sort of a Sokovia Accords thing where, it was okay to do that when you were, how many films in were we when we got the Sokovia Accords and the Civil War? That was like we were on the third Captain America film, and we'd already done three Iron Man films, and I think, we were probably not quite. I think we got two Avengers. You know what I mean? We were pretty much there. We were ready for that kind of conversation. I don't know if we need that kind of conversation in the first Superman film, to be honest with you. I wish we could go back to some Silver Age concepts like Superman and Lois, and not Lois knowing Superman as Clark and Clark as Superman. And I wish Luthor had a better motivation just than I'm jealous of an alien and people shouldn't look up to him because he's so powerful. So, I mean, those are the things I don't like. The rest of it looks really good. People are going to complain about the costume. The costume's fine. People are going to complain about the actor. The actor's fine. All the actors look great in this from what I can see. We finally got a few, lines from Lois. I think the problem with the Lois depiction is, and this is probably going to be something that I think was always going to be the case, but they're going to go with the more recent depiction of Lois, which is sort of the acidic, sarcastic, you know, hard hitting journalist. And don't get me wrong, she's a hard hitting journalist, but I mean, where she's sort of a no nonsense character. You know what I mean? She's going to do her job, even if it's going to hurt Superman. That is not the way Lois Lane is typically portrayed. I think the most we've seen something like that was in Superman Returns, where Lois gets a Pulitzer for doing an article, Why the World Doesn't Need Superman. And it was because she was a jilted girlfriend with a child. And it was, I guess moderately understandable in that context. But Lois Lane has typically been the one character that Superman can depend on, where she'd literally walk on hot coals to do something to protect Superman. Now, again, I don't want to take the wrong response from this, the wrong reaction by saying, well, she's challenging Superman. There's such a thing as tough love, and she's probably challenging him to prepare him that the world is seeing him in this light. But again, I see Lois as the kind of person who's going to walk on hot coals for Superman, and she's going to make sure that he's protected. And she knows that he's the most important person, not only to her, but to the world at large, you know, in general. So I kind of feel like this again was the wrong way to introduce her in a speaking role in the trailer was with this. And, again, I gave props to Amy Adams because I think her Lois did find the right balance of she is fiercely in love with Superman and wanted to protect him. And at the same time, she's a journalist with great integrity and so on and so forth. I just hope they find that right balance here for Lois. Because again, we haven't seen both sides. We've seen that she kisses Superman. Obviously, there's romance going on there, but I don't know to what extent is she going to put her journalistic integrity ahead of her relationship with Superman. I don't think she would. I think to her, Superman always comes first. And of course, by the same token, to Superman, Lois always comes first. That's why I always say they're one of the, definitive pulp relationships. There's always Superman and Lois. No one else is going to go with Superman than Lois. It just works that well. It's Tarzan and Jane. It's Flash Gordon and Dale Arden. It's you know, the Shadow and Margot Lane, I guess. I mean, there's a lot of them that you really don't see how it couldn't work between them. And they got to make sure they get that right in this film. Especially that relationship, I think. If it's going to work at all, it has to work on the basis of that. All right, so thank you for joining me. I seen a couple of people were watching. Nobody wanted to speak in the chat, but if you're watching this on the replay, you can always leave some comments in the comment area, and I will address them on the next Torch News Roundup. I was going to do a Torch News Roundup today where I was going to do, a full show, like a full hour. We would talk about some other things. There was really a lot to talk about. There's a couple of things coming out about the He-Man movie we'll talk about, but we'll get to that some other time. Right now, this is the story of the day, and also I'm going to be doing a video pretty soon. I've got to take some time to do a Andor season 2 review. Again, I'm not a huge fan of Andor. I know a lot of people are crazy about it. I wasn't quite as crazy about it the first season. I think the second season is an improvement on the first season because they've done it in a different way, that they kind of spaced out the storylines. So it doesn't really feel like this one long meandering story. But we'll get to that when we get to that. I got to do that review. And of course, we're going to look forward to Superman when that comes out July 11th. And I still am very excited about this film. I mean, the trailer, I think, is, like I said, so-so. I mean, maybe 3 stars. If I was to rate it on a 3 out of 5 basis, it's a 3, I guess. We really don't know a lot about the plot other than Superman is doing good and people don't like him for it. We really don't know much more than that. We know Luthor is evil. We kind of always knew that. So this trailer doesn't really tell me anything much about the movie. So on that basis, also, it kind of is a letdown. But again, the visuals are great. The acting is great. I'm still very much looking forward to this film. And honestly, I'm thinking this is going to be the better film between this and Fantastic Four. That's just my opinion. Again, let me know what you think in the comments below. And thank you for joining me here on this lovely spring afternoon. And we'll see you around. This is Johnny Torch reminding you once again, keep the flame burning brightly, and I'll be with you again real soon.